G'day boys, so we are back on my account for another episode of Exposed here. We're going to be going through and exposing all the runes and monsters that I'm currently using in my turn 2 RTA playstyle, and as well as I'll give a bit of a discussion about why I'm using that unit and where I'm kind of using it as we go through. So let's get started. So the first one here is Lulu. Lulu on a Violent Nemesis build on a speed, HP and resistance with some skill 1, skill 2 and skill 3 recovery for Lulu, and then just some minus damage on the left side here. Lulu isn't typically one that I bring many matches. It's had a couple of wins for me so far this season here. Kind of just a niche pick whenever I want the extra immunity. The next one we have here is Praha on a Violent Will set again on a speed, crit rate and HP. Pretty tanky, good amount of crit rate on most of the oracles, on all of the oracles, because you do want them to turn cycle with their skill 1. A reasonable amount of accuracy as well. She does offer the strip as well as the sleep on her skill 3 with the big heal. I typically will bring her into whenever I'm looking for double strippers if they're playing double immunity. Things like if they're going a Wusa slash maybe Lulu or something like that, or definitely even a Wusa. Carnal or an Antares, that sort of thing is out there. I'll bring the Praha just for the strip to deal with the Wusa, as well as a little bit of control and a little bit of damage to deal with some of those fire units. The artifacts on Praha, I've just stacked full additionals as much as I can, as well as some skill 3 recovery on this side, and then just some more additionals on the left side here. The next one we have here is a Wusa on a Violent Will again on a HP build. Again, not something that I'm using a great deal of, but he is getting a little bit of play out of me. Just when I'm looking for that immunity unit that also offers a little bit of damage and basically what Wusa has to offer. The artifacts on Wusa, we've gone for some skill 2 recovery as well as just a little bit of additionals here. He doesn't really stack that well with additionals, but it never hurts. And then some damage dealt on wind, and then just a little bit of minus damage across the other 3 here as well. The next one we have is a Sion on a Fatal Will set on a speed, attack and attack. He's kind of just tuned to go behind my strippers, trying to get out some Sims damage and some CC. Really high attack, doesn't need a great deal of accuracy because he gets the accuracy bonus on his skill 2. And he's just there whenever basically I want a bomber in the game. If they've got no immunity, I kind of use him kind of like a pseudo Rika, as I don't really have her. He's a niche pick, but he's a very strong last fist pick. And he has some extra bomb damage on this side, and then just some more bomb damage on the other side as well. Next we have Moore on a Despair Energy set. I prefer not to put Will on my Moore. I don't think it's necessarily needed. Typically he'll be going first anyway, or the only time he gets outsped is by another stripper usually. So I prefer to go for the extra stats. We've gone for really high attack here, so he is on a speed, attack and attack build. The really high attack is to try and deal with Douglas basically. With his attack break on skill 1 as well as having really high attack himself, he basically can negate the problem of Douglas soloing a team. So 1v1 at the end here, my Moore will win 99% of the time. And then we'll just stack some additional damage on either side with the artifacts for him as well. Next we have Nana. So Nana for me is my first pick unit. She's the strongest unit that I've got in the current meta, as well as she doesn't necessarily give away the fact that I'm playing hard turn 2 straight away, and gives me a little bit of option to somewhat flexible pick into a slightly faster team with them more if I wanted to. And she is on a Despair Will set on speed, HP and HP. With some additional damage on the right side, and then just some massive minus from wind on the left side, and a little bit of extra damage on fire here as well with gemmed in. So she's just want her nice and tanky. A little bit of attack on her is pretty good, as well as she stacks really well with the additionals, with her skill 1 being a multi-hit. Next we have the Verd. So I've gone for the Revenge Verd. At the moment, like I said, I'm playing turn 2, pretty much like I'm playing hard turn 2 here. So Revenge Verd I put down whenever I see the opponent going a lot of AoE, potential like sort of CC cleaving, as well as it takes it away from those Swift Verd players, which is a really strong pick for them. So if I see someone opening with a more Champang, I'll typically put down the Verd, knowing that it's a hard counter to those 2 units. And he is on a speed, crit rate and HP build, and then we've just gone for some additional damage on this side, and then just some more damage on this side here as well, on the elements. Next we have the Tessa on a Violent Will set. Nice and tanky, good amount of accuracy, and it's actually on a crit rate build here, so speed, crit rate and HP. with HP and just some extra skill 3 accuracy here for the Oblivion, and then just some minus damage from water on this side here. So Tessa's what I bring out whenever I see a lot of passives on the other side. If they have a Antares, a Molly, maybe even a Kinky, Diana, those sorts of things, I'll put down the Tessa to try and counter those. Next we have Antares. I'm using a lot of Antares this season. I understand he's a very frustrating and annoying unit a lot of the time to both play against when he procs so many times in the first few turns, but he's also just as annoying to play with when he has those matches where he doesn't proc at all. So I've been on both sides of the Antares fence here, but he still is an incredibly strong unit, as well as offers basically a lot of RNG, and if you pair him with things like Nana and Riley, it offers great sustainability with him, and keeping him on the field only increases the chances long term that he's going to get those procs that he needs for you to take out a unit. So an incredibly strong unit, as well as for me in particular, where I'm playing a lot of Nana and Diana, he's a very sort of strong pick into that. So being able to pick one of your, not necessarily force bans, but taking away from your opponent one of the units that does counter you is a really good strong strategy to employ in RTA. And he is on a HP crit damage and HP build, with some additional damage by attack and then some more additional damage by attack on this side here as well. With your Antares, you kind of want him as tanky as you can, and you don't need any speed on him because you want him to be proccing. You don't really want him to be taking natural turns because you want the attack buff and you want the crit rate buff that he has to get the maximum value out of all his damage anyway. So you can virtually run him at 0 speed and then just stack as many stats as you can on him in both the HP, attack, and then crit damage area. Next we have the Douglas on a Vampire Blade set here. He's really high attack, kind of to increase the chances of glancing with his passive. And I've also opted for the really high HP here. The reason I've got this high amount of HP is it allows me to survive a Ciara bomb. When the Ciara puts the bomb on him and then detonates, it doesn't have enough damage to kill me, and then typically the detonation, being a wind unit, will glance on me as well, which then I'll get the revenge off, and then I'll heal back up most of the damage that the Ciara actually does, so it kind of wastes the bomb. And also a lot of the time that's their only way of killing Douglas. So I've won many matches where the only way they have of killing Douglas is the Ciara bomb. It doesn't kill me first turn, I can then quickly kill the Ciara, and then it's game over from there. The artifacts on Douglas, I've gone for the life drain, counter attack damage, and then some more life drain and counter attack damage on this side here, and there's just some extra bits and pieces that kind of make sense. Next we have the Veramos here on a speed, attack, and attack build. I'm kind of using him similar to how I was using Sion, as a very niche 5th pick only, kind of like a pseudo Rika type thing, as I don't have the Rika, so I'm using the Veramos here instead. He does offer the defense break as well as attack break. The reason I've gone for the really high attack build is again because of things like Douglas in the game. So he still gets enough damage out. He doesn't necessarily need the crit rate and the crit damage. He will do enough damage to really hurt the enemy team anyway, especially if they're a bit squishier, which they typically are if they're not running a lot of immunity anyway. As well as then it allows me to put a bit more HP on him and just get more stats on him overall. And these are the artifacts on him. Just some extra accuracy and then some more additionals on this side here. Next we have the Triana on a Violent Shield set on a HP. I'm using her basically solely as a counter to the cleave teams, the damage cleave teams like Delusion, Julie, those sort of comps that I'm running into every now and then. There still are a few of them getting around, so she's sort of specifically built for those and for those only. And then her artifacts is some skill 2 recovery on this side, and then just some minus damage from fire and wind on this side here. Next we have the Diana on a Violent Will set on a HP build. Nice and tanky. Really tanky. A lot of the time when you bring the Diana into the game, she is the first unit that they're targeting down because it makes sense to sort of only hit her. If you're hitting other units on the field, they'll only boost the Diana's attack bar and then giving her more turns, which she does big damage. So typically she gets targeted and focused down first. So having her really tanky has been a huge advantage for me this season. A lot of the time people just can't kill her, and then she still gets to take her turns, and then everyone else gets basically free reign left on the field. and her artifacts are some additional damage by attack, and then just a bit of extra on this side. And then on the left side here, I've got a lot of minus damage from water. So I'll bring her into Wusa Mo Long, and a lot of time they'll potentially try and snipe my Diana at turn 1, because I have the minus 21% from water. Mo Long only does 50% of her health, and because she has so much health, by the time Wusa then does his skill 2, it's not even close to being able to kill me. And then usually I'll have some sort of support with her, either a Nana for the revive or the Riley to heal me back up. Next we have the Jamiah on a violent will set. He's a niche pick for me, just if I want another speed lead / cleanser type situation here. He is on a crit damage build, on a speed, crit damage and attack build. He does offer good damage as well. He's a very versatile sort of unit, but he's kind of like a niche 5th pick for me only. And then we've just gone for some more skill 1 crit damage on this side, and some own target, single target crit damage on this side, as well as a bit of damage dealt on water. Next we have the Mafesto. Mafesto is on a speed, crit rate and HP build, on a despair will. He's a only pick for me, super niche, whenever they steal my Nana, which isn't very common because I'm first picking Nana, so I do get it 95% of the time. I definitely, like, the people that aren't first picking Nana, I get it, and then if I have first turn, even if they're a Nana player anyway, I still am going to get it. So he's only here basically for that situation only, but he is very good for that role. If you do have one and you are having trouble with Nana, I can recommend building him, especially if you are playing turn 2. The better way to counter Nana, I think, is probably just outspeeding it and cleaving and CC cleave. But if you are committing and you are playing turn 2, Mafesto is a great option for that, as well as he offers the massive HP lead. So he does pair incredibly well with things like Diana and the other units that I've got in my box here. You can see here though, I haven't even skilled him. Like, he's super niche for me, but he does fill the role and does pick me up some wins. And the artifacts I've got on him is just some skill 2 crit damage and a bit of additionals, and then some minus damage from fire. You do want him alive, right? The point of him there is to basically negate the Nana and revives on the other side of the field, so he needs to be on the field to be able to do that. So you do want to try and make him as tanky as he can, but as well as trying to squeeze out, like, he's got to have some extra value in the team. So this is why I've gone for the crit rate HP build. Next we have the Taranis on a violent will set as well, on a speed, crit damage and defense. Still a reasonable amount of HP here, very high crit rate, and basically what I've done is I've sacrificed speed. So what I've done across my entire box here is I've sacrificed a lot of speed on units just to get them as efficient and as many stats on them as I possibly can, knowing that I'm going to be going turn 2 anyway. It doesn't really matter most of the time. We're trying to survive whatever the enemy is putting forward on their first attack here, and then basically they get ahead of us at the beginning, and then we're looking to overtake them as the match goes along. And then once we get back in front, because we have the better stats overall, we typically can then stay in front and then win the match from there. So yeah, nice and tanky, good amount of defense. And then the artifacts on him, I've gone for skill 2 crit damage here, as well as then some extra crit damage, single target crit damage, and crit damage is less and more. So he'll hit incredibly hard when he does get both the defense buff for himself on as well, and then having this amount of crit damage, he hits really hard and can quite often just one-shot a unit, especially behind a Nana defense break. Next I have the Riley here on a violent will set, on a speed, HP and HP build with 100 res, nice and tanky, good amount of defense. This is probably my fastest violent will set that I can probably make while keeping 100 res on the Riley here. She is tuned to sort of go in front of a lot of things, which can offer the cleanse before the rest of my team have to go, so I don't waste my first turn when I do get my turn after the opponent has gone. Or she can put up immunity and just basically, just do what Riley does, is give the attack buff, extra damage, extra sustain. You can't reset her, you can't silence her with her skill 4, so she's an incredibly strong healer in the game right now, and she's one of the best healers to be bringing in to counter things that reset skills, because her skill 4 can't be reset. The artifacts on Riley, we've gone for some skill 3 recovery here, and then just some minus damage from fire on the left side. Next we have Feng here. He's on a violent will set as well, on a defense HP build. I haven't actually really been able to use him yet. We've only just pulled him, but he is ruined up, ready to go. I'm still looking for some more skill ups on him, but I will be testing him out probably even before he's max skilled. Sort of as those, again, sort of a niche pick here into those water heavy teams. Feng can just be a big annoyance and solo a lot of units in the game. The artifacts on Feng, we've gone for some additional damage by defense, and then just some more additional damage by defense, basically on both sides here. Next we have the Xingzai on a Violent Wolf set again on HP, crit damage, and attack. Nice and tanky, good reliable amount of crit rate, an okay amount of accuracy too, and a reasonable amount of attack. So again, we've just sort of gone for as many stats as I can, and we've sacrificed speed here as a result. He does have the awakening into speed, so he's not too slow here. And he's kind of tuned with the rest of my box. We're kind of running most of my box around the 240 to sort of even slower range, a lot of these units, with the exception of some of my like first turn strippers and things like that. They're more up around the 260 to even 270 range. And then his artifacts, we've gone for some skill 2 accuracy with the defense break here, a bit of additional damage and crit damage, and then some minus damage from fire on the left side here as well. Next we have the Leo on a violent nemesis build on an attack, crit damage, and attack build. Again, nice and tanky though. We've got a lot of HP and subs here. You don't need any speed on Leo obviously as well. Good amount of crit rate, good amount of accuracy, and he's just very efficient, as much stats as I can get on him as possible. The artifacts, we've gone for some single target crit damage as well as some skill 2 crit damage, and then just some minus damage on the left side from water and some dark here as well. Next we have the Kinky on a Despair Endure set here, the attack, HP, and HP. Really tanky, as much attack as I can get out of him. The nerf to Kinky's skill 1 really did hurt. It makes the rune requirements on him to basically be viable now go a lot higher, because you need to get some damage out of him, so you do need to stack as much attack as you can. And again, you can run him a little bit slower and try and get him to the 100 res if you can. That's something I'm working on. I'm just waiting on some more gems and grinds to fix up a rune, and then I'll be putting him up to 100 res as well. He has fallen off a lot here. I kind of bring him into some ragdolls, that sort of situations, but he's sort of become a very super niche pick. With all the Despair units that are getting around in RTA right now, any Despair stun on Kinky and he basically becomes useless straight away. So he is very niche, but he still can be very strong unit, and if you can get him into a match where you can kill some of the threats to him, he then can solo the last 2 or 3 units depending on what they are a lot of the time. And the artifacts on him, I've just gone for some skill 1 recovery as well as some additional damage here, and then some minus damage from wind on the left side here. So one of the biggest problems with Kinky right now is actually Oliver. By the time Oliver gets his 5 stacks on his skill 3, Oliver will do enough damage that he doesn't proc the Kinky passive, so Oliver can solo Kinky probably 90% of the time. So I've opted for a lot of minus damage from wind here, so potentially we can just take out whatever other threats there are to Kinky, and then if the Kinky and Oliver are the only 2 left, hopefully the Oliver doesn't do enough damage, and my Kinky with the minus damage from wind here will be enough that the Oliver can't kill it, we get the revenge off, and then we get to kill the Oliver. Next we have the Molly on a violent nemesis build here on a speed, HP, and HP. We've gone for the 100 res on this build as well. Nice and tanky, good amount of defense, and reasonably fast as well as like compared to like sort of the rest of my box. It is tuned before a lot of my bruises here, so she does have the cleanse with her skill 2 shield as well, so we can potentially cleanse off a unit that's already been stunned or CC'd, and then they get to take their turn sort of thing. So she is tuned in front of most of my box here as well. And then the artifacts on her, we've gone for some skill 3 recovery with her passive healing here, and then just some minus damage on the left side, just try and keep her alive as long as possible. Next we have the Veramos on a triple nemesis build on a HP. He's kind of just there for things like Neftis and things that is like super high amount of debuffs that are really annoying. Things like maybe even a Kiki. Very niche pick for me, but he has had some play and he's been okay. He's sort of filled the role. He does offer the HP lead as well, so we get a little bit of extra value out of him from there that pairs quite well with things like the Diana. Like basically the rest of my box here. The more HP the better. We are turn 2, so you kind of want to stay alive. So he's just like I said, he's just there as a sort of super niche pick for me. And the artifacts on him is some skill 2 accuracy here for his stun, like it's like okay value. And then on the left side here, we've gone for some minus damage from water and wind and a little bit of additionals as well. Just try and keep him alive, as well as try and get a little bit of damage out of him when he does take a turn. So yeah, that's it guys. That's the monster box that I'm playing with right now. I have got a couple of videos up with some matches of me using this monster box. So I'll leave a link to those in the description below. But that's it for me today, boys. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.